In my past life, my sister promised that she would find me a decent job. Instead, she tricked me into working at an adult nightclub, serving drinks. She even used this job to sully my reputation, making our parents and relatives despise me. Ironically, I met the young master of the Arizona Circle at the adult nightclub and became his beloved woman, pampered and showered with affection. My sister, on the other hand, got laid off. Everyone praised me for doing better than my sister. Out of jealousy, one day when I was out of town, she drove her car straight into me. With madness in her eyes, she growled, "Go to hell." I couldn't get out of the way and died under her car. When I opened my eyes again, it was the day she brought me into the adult nightclub. When I saw my sister push me away and told the supervisor that she was the one reporting for work that day, I knew that she had been reborn too. Unlike the last life, she smirked at me, saying that soon she would be treasured by the young master. I laughed with her and willingly gave her the opportunity. Because in my last life, I wasn't merely the young master's beloved woman, but his sacrificial lamb. Ding! This novel reminds you to click the subscribe button in the bottom right corner to read the complete novel. Who amongst you is the new recruit reporting for work today? A voice echoed in my ear, and then I was shoved aside by my sister. Excitedly, she shouted, it's me, my name is Julie." Leaning against the wall for support, I cast a puzzled glance at her. Then I understood that she had been reborn with me. And we were back to the day she arranged for me to accompany men for drinks at the adult nightclub in our past life. I saw her hastily sign the contract, her expression filled with ecstatic joy. As soon as the foreman left, I asked with a feigned puzzlement, "Julie, isn't this the job you arranged for me?" She snorted with derision and said disdainfully, "You are not suited for this job. Just honestly find your own job and don't think about relying on me." Hearing such words, a cold smile appeared in my heart. In my previous life, I was ready to find a job as soon as I graduated from university. But my sister insisted that she had arranged a good job for me and forced me to accept her arrangement. When it came to signing the contract, I wanted to read it carefully, but she addressed me impatiently. "I am your sister, even though I'm a bit harsh to you sometimes, I would never harm you. Just sign the contract quickly. What's there to see?" At that time, I also thought the same way, so I signed the contract. Who would know that signing this contract was like selling myself? The place where I actually worked was not the office she mentioned, but an adult nightclub where I accompany clients, living a life worse than death. My hair had been burned by clients with lighters, my arm had been scorched by clients with cigarette butts. Or when they played darts, I was forced to balance an apple on my head as their target. These were all common occurrences. Even now, thinking about it makes my body shudder uncontrollably. All of this was caused by my sister. Recollecting this, my gaze towards her chilled further. She sneered coldly, "You're neither as smart nor as pretty as me. Giving you this job would just be a waste of resources. I'm not afraid to tell you that it won't be long before I become the Crown Prince of Arizona's girlfriend. Then I can command wind and rain as I wish. You will never compare to me in your lifetime." She used to undermine me at every turn, yet she still pretended to be my caring older sister. Now, even before turning into a phoenix, she acts all high and mighty, not even bothering to keep up appearances. I hid my coldness and feigned surprise. "Julie, you know the Arizona's Crown Prince?" She huffed coldly, teeth clenched. "Previously, I did not have the opportunity to know him. But now, he'll be mine for sure. Don't even dream of him, just prepare to shine my shoes in the future." I chuckled silently. In this lifetime, she has already signed that contract. Doomed to suffer immensely in the adult nightclub. I will watch her suffer everything I endured in my previous life. My sister happily went to work at the adult nightclub. Ended up being sent back in the middle of the night, with a bandage wrapped around her head. It scared my parents terribly. I hastily asked her what happened. She said she accidentally hit a tree and told them not to worry. From a distance, I watched her, a secret sense of pleasure in my heart. After all, in my past life, I experienced such things many times. I could guess the cause of the injury anywhere. It seemed like a client had smashed her head with a wine bottle. When Mom and Dad went back to their room to continue sleeping, she coldly glanced at me, growling lowly, "Stop laughing at my misfortune. It's temporary, and soon you will know how lucky I am." I smiled at her and went back to my room. Because in no time, she would find out not only the fact about her luck, but she would also discover that she was already in hell. In the last few days, I found a job that suits me. Working as a copywriter in an advertising company. My life was calm and ordinary. Perhaps others might find it boring. Yet, it was all I ever desired. My sister, quite simply, moved out and said it was more convenient for work. Our parents didn't say anything. However, I knew she carried scars, afraid that our parents would discover her sideline of serving drinks at the adult nightclub. But a few days later, the group chat exploded. Because I carelessly leak out my sister's workplace in front of a gossip-hungry aunt. That aunt brazenly followed my sister and even posted photos of her working in the adult nightclub. In the photo, she was sitting and laughing on a man's lap. Seeing such a photo, my parents were furious. They called her directly and demanded she come home today. When my sister got home, a bunch of relatives had already gathered in the house. Seeing her, the relatives began to criticize her recklessness. My dad was even wielding an iron rod, trying to hit my sister. Watching this unfold, I remembered how they taught me a lesson back then. At that time, my sister smugly stood by, berating me for not having respect for myself, and claiming she had tried to stop me from taking up such jobs, but I would not listen. With each added phrase from her mouth, my parents' hits became fiercer. A smile tugged at the corner of my mouth. Finally, it's my turn to avenge the grievances of my past life. Dad, Mom, my sister willingly chose to work in such a place, utterly disgracing our family's name. It won't take long until everyone finds out about it. How will people perceive us then? They'll think your daughter was not raised right, just like the saying, "A crooked stick will have a crooked shadow." I feigned distress as I lamented. Upon hearing these words, my sister's eyes bulged with anger and she began to swear at me. "Helen James, what are you trying to stir up? Watch out, or I might just kill you." I shouted even louder. "Dad, Mom, look." Not only has she failed to realize her mistakes, she even wants to kill me. I am her younger sister. As I said this, it only further infuriated my parents, who began to hit my sister. Those relatives also cursed at her in anger. My sister screamed out in pain, all the while glaring at me with a resentful gaze. "Mom and Dad, please stop, it hurts. There's a reason why I agreed to work in an adult nightclub. I'm going to meet the young master of Arizona's circle soon, and I'll be pampered to the heavens then. You would also be able to share the wealth and glory that come with it." My sister kept explaining. I frowned and quickly replied. "What young master of Arizona's circle? Why don't you call him here if you're so sure? Not only are you degrading yourself, but you're also lying. Do you really consider our parents fools? She hasn't met that young master, Andrew Mark, yet, so naturally, it's impossible for her to call him." She could only glared at me fiercely, as if she wished to kill me with her gaze. Upon hearing me, my parents became even more aggressive in their beating. The pleasure in my heart was immense. After being severely beaten, my parents demanded she quit her job as a drink attendant. But she stubbornly refused to. This angered my parents, who not only beat her again, but also threw her out of our home. As she picked up her suitcases to leave, I stood at the doorway, a smirk on my face. Just as she had looked at me once. She ground her teeth at me and said, "Helen, don't be so smug, soon I will make you kneel and beg me, just you wait. At that time, you'll be nothing more than my dog." I laughed and closed the door firmly behind me. I was tired of hearing the dog bark. As my sister's reputation plummeted, my parents were thoroughly disappointed in her. Relatives also mocked her every day in the group chat. Yet, she had no intention of leaving the group. She would often drop threatening remarks in the chat group, assuring us that we would regret our actions. All of her relatives mocked her, making fun if she had delusions. Suddenly one day, my sister shared a photo in the group chat of herself sitting inside a Maybach, and a man's exquisite side face was also in the picture. With a hint of pride, she shared a voice message. "You who look down on me, take a look at my boyfriend, Andrew, a princely figure in the Arizona circles. A man who gets what he wants, someone whom many young ladies wish they could meet. On the surface, you see me accompanying others to drink, but in fact, I'm doing it to help us, the James family, move up in class. Once I become rich, of course I would help my relatives. Don't you all understand this simple principle? Forget it, even though you have spoken ill of me, I am still a magnanimous person. You all are my family, I naturally will forgive all of you. With that said, she began to send red packets wildly in the chat group. This move stunned everyone, including our parents. However, it was effective. The atmosphere in the chat changed suddenly. No one criticizes or blames her anymore. Even mom and dad curiously inquired in the group chat about Andrew's family background and their relationship. My sister has become a phoenix, being the center of attention. Looking at her series of moves, I couldn't help but smirk. After all, in my previous life, the person who maneuvered like this was me. When I met Andrew, with a single sentence he helped me solve my contract problem, pulled me out of the adult nightclub, and even asked if I wanted to be his girlfriend. Back then, I genuinely believed that I had stumbled upon my redemption. Indeed, my heart fluttered, I was arrogant, and I used ostentation to show up my relatives and parents. But it was only later that I realized. What I had encountered was far from redemption. It was clearly an even more terrifying abyss. And my sister right now, she must be just like I was then. Believing that she has truly become the princess from fairy tales. Let her indulge in this delusion a bit longer then. After all, the deeper she indulges, the more painful it will be when the beautiful dream shatters. After Julie sent several red envelopes in a chat group and bought houses and cars for our parents. Everyone praised her for being smart and capable, no longer mentioning her past as a hostess in a bar. Feeling pleased with herself, she stood outside my door, boasting, "Helen, do you see this? This bag was bought for me by Andrew yesterday, it cost hundreds of thousands. The kind of measly job you do can't even afford my bag no matter how many years you work. Furthermore, Andrew has introduced me to all his friends. I will soon become Mrs. Mark. Are you envious now? So much so you are gritting your teeth in frustration?" I found these remarks amusing. Andrew is a renowned princeling in Arizona, and countless women want to hook up with him. Julie, why did he take a fancy to you at first sight? I asked her mockingly. Seeming taken aback for a second, Julie put her hands on her hips and retorted confidently. Isn't it because I'm exceptional that he took notice of me? Well, you are quite good-looking, but there must be numerous pretty girls around, right? Instead of coming here to brag, you should be keeping a closer eye on the women around Andrew, lest a sudden newcomer takes your place. At these words, Julie furrowed her brows, gave me a cold glare, and hurriedly left. My words must have stirred up a sense of crisis in her. Over the next few days, Julie didn't make herself all too present in front of me. I enjoyed my ordinary and humdrum job. The weekend was coming up, and my colleague Lily invited me to go shopping. I gladly accepted her invitation. Holding our ice creams, Lily and I were walking along when we suddenly saw a crowd gathering ahead. Lily quickly pulled me into the crowd to see what was going on. You shameless little seductress! How dare you entice my boyfriend? Have you ever looked at yourself in the mirror? That familiar voice made me pause for a second. Quickly, I moved to get a better view, and indeed it was Julie. At that moment, she was gripping onto a woman's hair and slapping her across the face. When I recognized the woman, I couldn't help but be shocked for a few seconds. You shameless woman! I will today strip you naked and ruin your face. Let's see if you would dare to seduce others again. Julie, enraged, started to rip the woman's clothes. Just then, a deep voice echoed. What's going on? Upon hearing this voice, my body instinctively shivered. Turning around, I saw the sight of Andrew gracefully approaching. His dark eyes swept across the crowd, and when they landed on me, we locked eyes. At that moment, I felt a chill creeping up my spine. Fortunately, his gaze only lingered on me for a moment before it fell onto Julie. I let out a sigh of relief. Only then did I realize I had been reborn. In this life, the woman standing by his side wasn't me anymore. Darling, it was tolerable when this woman secretly followed you yesterday. But today she even ran to the mall hoping for a chance encounter with you. She really has no shame. So, I couldn't help but teach her a lesson. Julie ran to Andrew, hooked his arm, cooingly tattled on the situation to him while acting cute. Andrew's eyebrows furrowed, his deep gaze landed on the woman, his face changed instantly as if a storm was brewing with just a glance. Humph, she definitely thought she looks a bit like me, and tried to seduce you. Nowadays, some women will use any means necessary to climb the social ladder. Darling, you really need to give her a lesson. Julie totally ignored Andrew's expression and continued to babble. Though the people around didn't know Andrew, they were overwhelmed by the intense aura emanating from him that they dared not even breathe. Everyone, disperse. There's nothing to see here. Andrew gave the crowd a glance, and his bodyguards prepared to step forward, causing the onlookers to quickly scatter. And the girl my sister had hit was looking at Andrew with teary eyes. Andrew's eyes darkened even more, pointing at her and said, "I, Andrew Mark, wouldn't stoop so low as to argue with a woman. Get out of here, and don't appear in my sight again, you upset my girlfriend." The woman immediately began to cry, covered her face, and ran away. What a promiscuous woman trying to act innocent. Darling, just look at the way she runs, it's clear she's been in bed with at least 10 men. My sister curled her lips and derisively jeered. Andrew's face darkened even more, his eyes full of impatience. Follow me. But where? I haven't finished shopping yet. Come quickly, I can't stand it any longer. Julie turned red at these words, gave Andrew an embarrassed look, and obediently let him lead her away. I quickly excused myself to Lily, saying I needed to go to the washroom, and quietly followed them. I tracked my sister and Andrew to the stairwell. Darling, you were never interested before. What made you interested today? Isn't it a bit inappropriate here? What if someone sees us? While pretending to be bashful and looking at Andrew, Julie pulled down her collar, trying to make herself look more seductive. Andrew smirked and said in a gravelly voice, "Don't worry, as long as there's no surveillance." Julie giggled shyly and said in a squeezed voice, "You're so naughty." After her words, she tried to embrace Andrew, but was pushed away harshly the next second, and she fell heavily to the ground. Julie looked stunned at Andrew and asked in confusion, "Darling, what are you doing?" Andrew pulled off his belt and without hesitation, whipped it towards Julie. Julie screamed, hastily asking, "Darling, what are you doing? Did I do something wrong? It really hurts, can you please stop hitting me?" Julie was reduced to tears after being whipped a few times. She was trying to dodge while crying. "Why are you trying to dodge? This is only the beginning." Andrew's leather shoes pressed down on her back, he spoke with a sneer. At that moment, he was the embodiment of a devil. And I was lost in a terrifying memory of the past. The last time I met Andrew, I sighed to myself, believing to have encountered a merciful God. Because his appearance and family background were so reminiscent of the wealthy main protagonist in an idol drama. He spent a lot of money on me, he even introduced me to his friends, and helped rebuild my image in the eyes of my friends and family. Everyone envied me, they said I was like a golden canary kept by Andrew. He must really love me, after all, there were not many women who could catch his fancy, but he never even glanced at them. I was quite pleased with myself, feeling as if I was living in a dream, like I found my own fairy tale. I even started developing feelings for him. But the moment Andrew finished showing off his superficial charms, it was as if he had become a different person. He would beat me without any reason. And for some inexplicable reasons, I was targeted by people, mocked and framed by young ladies from wealthy families, or had a few accidents. I was even almost kidnapped. It wasn't until later that I realized how mistaken I was. I had thought of myself as his beloved woman. In reality, I was his scapegoat. Because he had offended some underworld figures a while ago, others had been trying to find his vulnerabilities to threaten him. And so, he turned to me, who bore a striking resemblance to his first love. His public display of affection was merely a ploy to thrust me into the spotlight. In this way, all the arrows would be directed towards me, allowing his first love to perfectly evade all retaliation. My sister also bears a resemblance to his first love, so it wasn't surprising that she would be picked by Andrew in this life. However, compared to me, my sister is evidently a troublemaker. Because she actually thinks too highly of herself, she just hit Andrew's first love in the mall. That's why Andrew couldn't wait to teach her a lesson here. I remember the days when I was the target of Andrew's temper tantrums, my heart filled with hatred. I thought if it weren't for my sister betraying me, I wouldn't have lived like a dog in the adult nightclub. I wouldn't have met Andrew, and I wouldn't have been made into a target. I had fantasized a million times about how great it would be if Julie was the one enduring all of this. When I heard Julie's hoarse pleas for mercy, I felt immensely satisfied. As Julie lay on the ground, desperately trying to get up and kneel before Andrew, begging like a dog, I felt gratified. She must have sensed a gaze upon her. When she lifted her eyes and realized that I was peeping at her from the corner, her face was full of astonishment and panic. I sneered, gesturing a light hook at the corner of my mouth, then quietly turned around and walked away. The agonizing screams behind me had ceased. I assumed she was probably extremely upset, having been seen in such an embarrassing predicament by me. Not long after I returned home, Julie gave me a call. I picked up the phone and remained silent. Meanwhile, she started ranting. "Helen, I'm aware that you saw everything. Don't think this has become fodder for your amusement. You don't know a thing. What happened between me and Andrew was just a playful moment. It has nothing to do with me being less favored. I am still the woman he holds dearly in his palm. Crushing you is as easy as crushing an ant." Upon hearing such harsh words, I just gave her a derisive snicker. "Julie, instead of using this time to lie to me, why not think about how to hold on to Andrew? I saw the hardness in his blows towards you today. That doesn't seem like someone in love. Did you do something to betray him, or maybe you offended someone you shouldn't have? In any case, I advise you to look out for yourself. Being a woman next to a prince in the social circles of Arizona requires some ingenious methods, right? If Andrew ditches you soon, we, the James family, will be the laughingstock again, and those relatives will look down on you even more." Hearing my words, Julie fell silent on the other end of the line. After a while, she gnashed her teeth and said, "I'm smarter and more beautiful than you. Of course, I've also got better techniques. Just you wait, the woman standing by Andrew's side can only be me. A woman like you, who can only stay in an office working for someone else for the rest of your life, can't even compare to a hair from me. You are destined to be my foil." With that, she hung up the phone. I hooked up the corner of my mouth. I'm quite curious what kind of tricks she has. Just don't disappoint me, okay? Recently, Julie hasn't had time to boast in the chat group. And during work, I met Austin. He was my high school classmate and had helped me several times during our high school years. In the past life, I was tormented unbearably by Andrew and his enemies. I was nearly kidnapped that time, but Austin unexpectedly appeared and saved me. At that time, Austin's eyes were filled with complex emotions as he looked at me and asked if I didn't live well. He said if that was the case, I could seek his help. I knew Austin liked me, and I was also grateful that he could help me when I was in trouble. However, I also understood my current situation. I was the scapegoat Andrew threw out to shield his beloved. No one could save me. I couldn't drag Austin down with me. So, I shook my head at him then, his face full of disappointment. "Do you love him that much?" he asked me, furrowing his brow. I was taken aback. So, he thought my willingness to stay deep in the whirlpool rather than to flee was because I loved Andrew. I felt a bitter taste in my mouth, but I nodded to him anyway. Disappointment filled Austin's face as he looked at me with lost eyes. Never mind, one cannot control feelings. Maybe if I had been braver initially, the situation now would have been different. But I wasn't brave enough after all. "Helen, rest assured, I will do everything I can to protect you." As he looked at me determinedly and spoke those words, a sour feeling washed over me, and tears welled up in my eyes. To think that someone saw me as worth protecting. But alas, had I not fallen into my current state, if I met Andrew, I would definitely have given him a proper look. At that moment, I wished I could start my life all over again. But now, I really am starting from scratch. So in the moment when I met Austin. When Austin's gaze fell upon me, his eyes filling with shy passion. I took a deep breath, holding back my inner turmoil and excitement, and voluntarily stepped forward. I looked at him with a smile, saying, "Austin, it's been a while. I didn't expect to meet you here." Austin was taken aback for a few seconds, his ears instantly turning crimson, and he responded in a low voice. Helen, it has indeed been a long time. These days, I've been in constant company with Austin. Just like any regular couple, we went on dates and shared meals. I've discovered that Austin, too, is a second-generation rich kid. His lifestyle isn't any worse than Andrew's, and he treats me well. With my forwardness, he responded with a confession. That's how our relationship was established. Meanwhile, Julie's days seem to be fraught with troubles. She probably thinks the beating she received that day were due to Andrew's affections for the woman she assaulted. As a result, she sneakily bought people to retaliate against Andrew's first love. Once Andrew found out, she was beat up horribly. She dared not act rashly anymore. Like my past life, she became an obedient puppet. Andrew took her to a banquet where the rich women who fancied him secretly sabotaged her because of her escort girl background. They caused her skirt to rip and reveal her underwear, making her a public laughingstock. When Andrew took her to a shopping mall, she almost got hit by a falling flower pot from above the floor, leading her to scream in fear. Upon hearing these news, I couldn't describe my feelings. There was a lingering fear from my past life. There's a certain kind of satisfaction in the settling of a major score. After all, my sister brought all this upon herself, and she deserved it. The next time I came across my sister, Austin took me to a banquet. Austin said that by taking me to such an event, he was formally introducing me to the people in his circle. As such, he had invested considerable effort in arranging for my jewelry and outfit. To be treated with such care warmed my heart. At the party, Austin held my hand the entire time, showering me with affection. It also deterred others from looking down on me, even had people currying favor with me spontaneously. When they said that Andrew had arrived, I looked from a distance to see him in the lead. And my sister was in tow, looking pale and fearful. Her normally flashy demeanor was gone. In the short span of 2 months that we hadn't seen each other, she had lost a significant amount of weight, her cheeks sunken. Despite everyone else wearing either short sleeves or off-shoulder gowns, she alone was in a long-sleeved evening dress, even a turtleneck, hiding her neck. At a glance, I could tell there must be several bruises and injuries in those areas. Her face was normally numb, but when she suddenly spotted me standing with Austin, she opened her eyes wide in surprise, her gaze fixated on my evening gown and jewelry. I flashed her a faint smile. "Austin, when did you come back to the country? You didn't even notify me." Andrew walked up to us, greeting Austin with a smile. My body stiffened for a moment. I didn't expect he actually knew Austin. And what surprised me more was his prideful self actually took the initiative to greet Austin. My sister, too, was taken aback for a moment, looking at Austin and me with a sense of suspicion. "I've been back for a month or two, came back for love, so I didn't tell anyone." Austin finished speaking, his eyes warmly gazing at me. Andrew's eyes also turned to me. But due to the deliberate alteration in my makeup, avoiding any resemblances to his once beloved first love, he seemed not to notice anything unusual. "Whoever has taken your heart must be quite extraordinary," said Andrew, having a few words of cordial exchange with Austin. Then I got to know that Austin's family business was not small, their main ventures were overseas. They were also partners with the Mark family, which established their high status within the circle. So, in my past life, my title as the Canary of the Prince of the Arizona Circle was a facade. But in this life, my identity as the girlfriend of a genuine rich second generation was real. Listening to this, Julie's face twisted into a near snarl as she glared at me, becoming increasingly uncomfortable. Due to the presence of Andrew, she didn't dare to utter a word. It was only when I went to the restroom alone that she sneakily followed me, her eyes flaming red as she glared forcefully at me. "Why are you looking at me like that?" I said, half smiling. "Aren't you the cherished darling of the Arizona Circle's crown prince, Andrew? Why are you jealous of me?" She trembled throughout, then growled lowly at me. Why is it always you who gets the good fortune? Even though you're seemingly inferior to me in every aspect, why is your life always better than mine?" Upon hearing such words, I smirked, my gaze piercing through her. "Oh, I beg to disagree, sister," I replied, my tone dripping with sarcasm. "In my past life, my circumstances were just like yours. But then you, consumed with jealousy, murdered me and inadvertently gave me a way out. So, to speak the truth, the hell you're currently living, it's of your own making." After finishing my words with a smirk, her face turned even more ashen, her eyes flashing with disbelief and rage. So you were reborn with me? So, I shot myself in the foot? Her voice was peculiar and hoarse, seemingly fighting for each sound to make its way out. Surprised, aren't you, sister? You thought of me as a fool, never realizing that you were the real joke all along. I'm going to kill you. She rushed at me after finishing her declaration, but I easily kicked her away. In my eyes, she was now entirely defenseless. After all, it's obvious through her every move that she's been severely hurt. It was already a struggle for her to walk with dignity. She stumbled and fell, glaring at me with bitterness. If you hadn't harbored ill intentions against me, you wouldn't have been involved in this predicament in the first place. Now, you should be a good scapegoat. You've brought this upon yourself and no one can save you. I said coldly, smirked, turned around, and walked away, only hearing her wailing behind me. My relationship with Austin has been getting more stable. Both my parents are very satisfied with him, and his parents also give him freedom and do not interfere with his marriage. As for Julie, she was kidnapped a few days ago while she was at the mall with Andrew. Although the kidnappers didn't succeed in the end, Julie's face was slashed, disfiguring her. Andrew finally managed to apprehend all those who threatened him, apprehending them all at once, and he even retrieved his one-time girlfriend. Thus, my sister, the pawn, became useless and was discarded by Andrew from his family like garbage. When my parents found out she had been kicked out, they were furious. Relatives and friends also ridiculed her for being useless. I told you, how could a bar girl actually marry into a wealthy family? Even if a rich tycoon took a fancy to her, it would only be for fun. She used to have a pretty face and could easily marry an honest man, but now, not only is her reputation ruined, her face is too. Where could she find an honest man willing to accept her? I see her life ruined like this. She will never catch up with her younger sister. Upon hearing these jeers, Julie couldn't come up with a response anymore and slinked away, quietly leaving the chat group. As of now, I am already discussing marriage with Austin. He said he has secretly loved me for many years, and only by marrying me does he feel secure. And I have decided on him too. After all, in the previous life when I was in danger, only he disregarded his personal safety to save me. Given a second chance at life, I have to hold on to him tighter. During our wedding banquet, we were making our vows to each other. Suddenly, Julie rushed onto the stage with a knife. Helen, I'm going to kill you. I want a do-over. I want to start again. You cannot have a better life than me, you can't. She kept shrieking these words as she charged at me. Austin reacted swiftly, quickly overpowering her. Seeing the situation, the security guards quickly dragged her away. All that was left was her hysterical screaming. It was both a hopeless and pitiful sight. Don't be afraid, I'll protect you, Austin assumed I was frightened and comforted me as he held my hand. Of course, I trusted him. After all, in my previous life, he could fight to the death against several kidnappers just to protect me. I embraced him and softly said, "You're so strong, with you by my side, I will never be afraid again." He laughed happily. My marital life with Austin was incredibly blissful. Yet, Julie was incessantly venting about wanting to be reborn, even claiming that the life I was leading should be hers. She was supposed to marry into a wealthy family and live a life of eternal bliss. I was the one who should have met with disaster. Seeing her in this state, our parents grew completely disgusted with her, proposing to admit her to a mental institution. Henceforth, she would never lead a comfortable life. As for me, my life was shining brilliantly.